Evening, everybody. My name is Joseph Jun. I'm the director of the Center for Critical Korean Studies here at UCI. Welcome to the final event in this series, the Rise of K-Culture, that was organized by my colleague, Professor Kyunghyun Kim. I want to congratulate Kyunghyun for this really wonderful series. It's been pretty amazing seeing all of these bright lights of Korean popular culture. And today's no exception. It is also the very last event of the year for CCKS. And we've had so many events this year. I actually have no idea how many events we've had. We've had so many. But I want to thank everybody that's been involved in terms of organizing the events. Juhoon, who's been behind the scenes. All of you for attending. We've had incredible audiences all throughout the year. And we really look forward to a new year of programming next year. I announced last time, this is very new news, that our grant was renewed from the Academy of Korean Studies, so our funding remains intact. And what that means is that you can look forward to a lot more continual programming from CCKS. So we're really excited about that, and I'm really excited about this event. And with that, let me turn it over to my illustrious colleague, Kyunghyun Kim.
All right, thanks, Joe. I want to thank this also being the last event of the Rise of K-Culture. I wanted to thank Joe, obviously, who's done so much for the center and for the events. I want to thank Jihoon, the coordinator, Amanda Swan of the Humanities Center, and a couple of people who were instrumental, who put it together. The SM Entertainment America has been absolutely instrumental in making the whole event possible, not just the tonight event possible, but the whole event where we featured obviously last 2 weeks K television as well as K cinema. Na Young-seok, television producer, probably one of the most famous celebrities in Korea, participated 2 weeks ago, to be followed by last week director Yeon Sang-ho and producer Lee Jun-dong of Korean cinema, and Consul Yu of the Consulate General's office over at over in Los Angeles, South Korean Consul General's office, has been wonderful in providing support and necessary publicity to make all this possible. So thank you, and thank you. Again, today we have a real treat, and I feel as if it can't go better. We have one of the, a representative star producer of SN Entertainment with us today, Dominique Rodriguez, who is also known as Dome, is business executive and certified multi-platinum music producer with over 19 years of entertainment experience dating back to 2002. And this is what actually kind of threw me off, because obviously in his CV he says 19 years of experience. And I thought, okay, he's got to be older. But Dome, you're only 37. that threw me off. And with your deep voice, I was expecting somebody who is, obviously not Quincy Jones old. But definitely somewhere around my age, but you're young, and that's one of the reasons why I asked him before the show, before today's webinar, how is it possible that a 37-year-old have 19 years of experience? And he started really young, folks. And to give you a bit of a clue, he started at age 17, and that's how you get 20 years of experience when you're still 37, right? Right out of Santa Fe, New Mexico. he had this early calling, you know, a dream. Age 14, he started producing, composing, songwriting, you know, started making tapes, sent it around, got picked up by revered producers, music producers of the day in Los Angeles, made a move age 17. And since then, it's been a roller coaster ride for him, you know. With Beyonce, Lady Gaga, you know, all these albums. Michael Jackson posthumous album was one of his projects that he participated. And then went to Korea when K-pop was hitting big. 2010 is, I feel, the year that you told me that
that is correct.
Transition, right?
Yep, 2010.
2010, when K-pop was growing exponentially. That's where you went, spent time with obviously EXO, Girls Generation, a lot of K-pop groups that were starting out back then. Continued his work as music producer, as well as financial producer, you know, that he wants to also point out that part of his important CV over the years. And here he is. So, welcome to UC
Excellent.
Irvine, though you're still in Los Angeles, and you're living in Los Angeles. So is what I get from the background.
Yes, I am. Well, thank you so much for having me today, Kyung. It's an absolute pleasure. I truly enjoy having these conversations, so I look forward to speaking to everyone today and taking a lot of questions and giving as much background as possible, and hopefully having a very educational, enlightening, and fun conversation with everybody that's tuning in today.
I think most people who are here today probably knows a lot better than I would what SM Entertainment.
Sure.
A lot of my questions, I feel, is going to come out from an angle that's, you know, pretty idiotic from the perspective of many of my own students that are out there. Again, the connoisseurs of K-pop and SM. I have one of the most actually fascinating students working on SM, and NCT is her dissertation, you know, topic. So.
That's incredible.
Yeah,
amazing.
Thesis, actually, I would just say, topic. And so I get a lot from my students. Anyway, so as we have seen, you go back 1990s. I mean, this is before actually you made the transition over to Korea. Late 1990s, around 2000, obviously, there was a definite kind of a strategy, right? Kind of a, you know, what used to be known as gayo in the Korean context. You probably know what that word means.
Mm-hmm.
It was oriented around, you know, kind of ballad singers, right? A lot of trot, you know, the enka kind of sound that was dominating Korea. A lot of ballads that were also dominating the gayo charts. And there was definitely kind of a strategy. I think SM or Chairman, you know, Lee Suman was where the initial SM comes from. Definitely changed the discourse and trajectory of the pop world in Korea as a whole. SES and obviously God, you know, the creation of his kind of changed again the dynamics.
It was actually HOT.
HOT. What did I say?
But God, but they were one of the early ones too. They were early one too. No worries.
Yeah, that's right. Sorry.
You're absolutely right. You know, it's one of those, you know, it's the story that I'm always, you know, trying to educate people on, especially in my position, dealing with so many different folks some who are aware of K-pop, some who are new to the conversation. But, you know, it's important for people to understand the past so that they can appreciate the present.
Great.
And so I think a lot of what you said is important to note that, you know, dating back to those early days and specifically for SM as you head into 95, 96, that moment of Mr. Lee kind of trailblazing the idea of, you know, I'm going to form what's going to be considered as the first idol group, or what we consider as the first idol group today, which is HOT. And that was in 1996. And at that time, that group was already starting to break those borders beyond Korea, right? They were already getting notoriety in other parts of Asia. Then you fast forward and you look at an artist like Boa, who is, we know today as the queen of K-pop. The idea of trailblazing to take her to Japan, and the success of that being that she became the #1 artist in the marketplace, was just incredible, right? It was just really the early beginnings of that trailblazing moment. And then from there, you have this thing that happens around 2007 or so, where SM puts its sights on the Western marketplace. And in fact, that's when those first moves started being made in the US. And some may be aware of this, but in 2011, I believe, was the first sold out SM Town show at Madison Square Garden in New York. And that's taking you back 10 years, right? Mm-hmm. As far as the US marketplace is concerned. So you kind of have obviously there's a lot more that could be discussed in all of those years, but that's kind of a fast track from 96 all the way to 2011. And then you come to 2021, and we're now in this place where SM is certainly a massive company, right? Mm-hmm. But to lean in on more of what K-pop has become, it's really become a part of our popular culture, specifically here in the US marketplace and beyond. And so I think it's important to just kind of look at all those things from the past to the present, because here we are today where now we have, I think it's nearly 100 million fans globally who enjoy K-pop music. You have, you know, acts that are performing at sold out arenas and stadiums all over the world, including the US. You have massive brand partnerships that are being held with some of the biggest companies in the world, right? Mm-hmm. One that I like to talk about that I love is, I'll show you here because I have a hat near to me here, but this was a group Super M and Marvel. And of course, everybody knows who Marvel is, but that was an amazing brand partnership we put together. And you just have numbers in the merch field and the physical field that are just unmatched. And most importantly, you have the greatest fans in the world. In fact, I rarely use the word fan. I really like to say community, because the K-pop community is really amazing. And unlike anything I think anybody has ever been able to experience to date when it comes to music.
Right.
So yeah, that's kind of a front to back. Sorry to run on, Kyung, but I think that appreciates some of the 96 to date.
Right. No, it's good. What most appealed to you coming from obviously Los Angeles recording studios?
Sure.
Albuquerque and New Mexico and Santa Fe seems a little bit remote, you know, from what Korea was, you know, even 10 years ago. I mean, now we're a lot, I mean, despite the pandemic, safe to say that we're a lot more globalized. 10 years ago, you know, you probably didn't hear much about, you know, GODs and HOTs and, you know, 동방신기's and, you know, these were probably not sounds that you were listening to often, but there must have been a draw or appeal that got you interested to motivate you to go to Korea and start working there. Can you talk about your personal experience?
Absolutely. So I'll talk a little bit about, you know, you hinted on some of my early years, you know, my 17 year start where I was awarded with my first platinum award, and thank God I was lucky to have that blessing at such a young age and start my career immediately. And then spending 10 or so years here in the US marketplace with continued success on various projects. And as you noted, at the time I was in the studio and we were working on Michael Jackson's posthumous album. And we had gotten a call that there was a K-pop group that was interested in hearing some music. So we said, oh, this sounds pretty interesting. Let's bring them and their manager or whomever over to the studio, and let's hear a little bit about this. This is interesting. And the result of that meeting was my entry point and some of my partners at the time into this world. And at the time that we decided to do some music with that group, we then watched the project unfold. And this is 2010. So we watched the music video come out and we see that it's getting millions of hits. And then we're thinking, wait, what is going on with K-pop? And why are there so many views? This is incredible. Mm-hmm. So we took a leap of faith and said, I think we should go and take a trip to Seoul and really learn more about this. Mm-hmm. It was then that I was really taken in because I was able to experience, firstly, the culture. I was able to experience kind of the world of K-pop, which to me didn't feel like just music artists or music companies, but it felt very much like lifestyle, right? It was very deeply rooted. And so fortunately, I had the pleasure of meeting with whom is now our acting CEO at SM Entertainment, Mr. Sung-Soo Lee. And I met him in 2010-11, and we immediately started working together and have been working together ever since. But after spending that period in Korea for that short duration of, let's say, 2 weeks or so, we were invited to go to a show in Paris. And so we said, oh, this is interesting, a K-pop show in Paris. Okay, let's go. So we all fly together with SM. We get to Paris, we find out that they have 2 pretty massive sold out shows for SM Town. And I walk inside that venue and I take a look around. And the thing that I think hit me hardest was, wow, there's a very diverse crowd here. These are people from all walks of life, backgrounds, ethnicities, all together in this community, inside of this venue celebrating these artists and their music. And for me, that was the big eye opener of K-pop is going to be massive. It's already growing globally. It already has this underlying fever, and it's going to continue to build. So at that point, I guess I had 2 choices: to pick up and come back to LA and continue doing what I was doing, or continue to follow that feeling that I had in my gut, which is, this is where my life is meant to be. So I was invited to come back to Seoul from Paris. And I'll tell the story another day, but I ended up living in Seoul for 6 years.
Yeah.
And where I actually met my wife, who's a Korean American from North Virginia, 2 beautiful children that were actually born in Korea. And throughout that whole period, I just worked very closely with SM Entertainment. And then about 4 years ago, I came to the US market. But, to your point and to your question, that's really what, where the gravity came from. Mm-hmm. And in that period, I was able to take part as a producer at the time on a record called The Boys, which was by Girls Generation.
Right. No,
and
that
it was myself. Hit. Yeah, it was me, Teddy Riley, another gentleman, Richard Garcia, who's still a production partner. And we had some incredible success, and it was just, again, another eye opener into, wow, how massive is this?
Yeah. 2 things.
So, yeah.
I went to actually the Madison Square Garden concert that you mentioned, Dome, and it was incredible. Not only were they all sold out, But yeah, as you point out, the diversity of the fans or the community, as you put it, was incredible. Usually you go to concerts, it's just one really, single file of, similar people who gathered. This wasn't the case. It was Hispanics, Caucasian, Asian, blacks, you name it. And actually you think it's just young kids. It's not, a lot of older people actually enjoy this music. A lot of older generation of Asian Americans that I couldn't believe would associate themselves with, 동방신기, and I was performing at the time. Yeah, and they knew the songs, man. That was what was incredible to me. I was like, what is this? I was totally disoriented myself. Looking at
it's pretty amazing to hear thousands of people sing songs in a language that is not their native language. It's
exactly. And not their ethnicity, not their, obviously, even age group sometimes. That was, to me, what was amazing. But I feel as if, again, I go back to 동방신기 and obviously EXO to a certain extent, because, you have one image of, obviously, idol groups, especially the girl generation. And so, SES, you got one, particular kind of image of idolhood. And then there is the male, obviously men who are, like Unrong, the big hit Growl, I guess is the English title. It's so different from what Girls' Generation would definitely associate with. It's a different kind of sound, and it's very heavy thudding sound. And that was, to me, what was so different. Okay, even within SM, there is diversity, of sounds that they try to actually get to,
Sure.
Yeah. So could you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, a little bit of the creative process,
right.
Obviously, the vision is 100% steered by Mr. Lee, and he's been the visionary and continues to be in all areas, but he very, very heavy-handed in the creative side. And one thing that SM did at a very early stage, which again was, I think, very innovating and trailblazing, was the idea of opening up K-pop to creators all around the world, right? So at a very early stage, writers and producers, including myself, from parts of Europe and parts of the US, were already collaborating with SM, right? So what you were getting immediately out of the gate was a sound that was, to me, a hybrid, right? It was the perfect combo of East meeting West in a lot of cases, when you had those creators from the West working together with people from the East, right? It really created this sound that I think allowed for the masses to access, right? And so I think when you talk about songs like, Growl, or if I think about The Boys, or if I think about EXO's Call Me Baby, or I think about the many hits, right? The list goes on and on and on and on. But the idea of that is you have people from all over the world coming together in the one language that is truly universal, and that language is music. And the idea that SM embraced that, and many other companies have as well, to be a part of that creative process, but to pull that into K-pop and then put that back into the world, I think that's something that really, really allowed for people to enjoy it. The other side, which is critical, and I know you can appreciate this, Kyung, is it was never just about the ears. It was very much about the eyes. And what I mean by that is the meticulous detail to the visual content, the detail to the backstories of the groups. As you know, our groups are just not, hey, here's an idol or a boy group or a girl group or a solo artist. They have very deep backstories at SM. So there's really something to dive into, as many of the people here who enjoy the music, and the content as a whole, it's a very deep well that you can go down to understand all these pieces. And so I think it's important to note that the music was always driven with a visual mindset as well. And of course, there was then SMP, which is performance. Oh. What is this going to look and feel like and come alive in a music video or on a stage? And when you combine all those elements together, that's when you get the embodiment of something truly special that I think is a core reason of why people have really been pulled in.
Mm-hmm. Good, good. Thank you so much.
Sure.
I'm going to get to some of our panelists that we have invited. Sam,
sure, would love to.
You want to turn on your camera and ask your question directly to Dome here?
Hi, Sam.
Yeah. Hi, it's so lovely to meet you. Thank you so much for being here tonight.
No worries.
So my question is, since you've worked both in Western context as well as in Korea, how do you see fans react differently to K-pop artists versus Western artists?
Well, let me just say that K-pop fans are the best in the world, right? They are of the most loyal, passionate fans that I've ever experienced. And I've been able to experience both sides of it, right? So it doesn't go for everyone, because certainly there has been groups in the US or artists that people have become loyal to, you know, in that way. But I think that with K-pop, when somebody truly gets behind an artist or a group, they're with you. They're with you. They truly care about you. They're in it. They're there to fight with you until the very end, you know, and I think it shows in the ways that they can show it, right? Whether that's when artists arrive to airports and fans are literally going, hey, please give them their space, and forming security lines so that those people can have their space and they can show that respect. Whether it's the driving social conversation, which keeps K-pop artists running the top 10 of the social artist Billboard charts, because the conversation is just always going. It's truly unmatched. You know, people who scratch the surface of this space like to call it Beatlemania, because that was kind of like the other era of somebody coming from a territory outside of the US, and kind of like the Beatles showed up and it was like, wow, what is this, right? That's the experience that you get with the fans here in the Western marketplace. And so, you know, I think that's really the keen difference for me, is just that level of passion and loyalty and engagement is far beyond anything that I think anybody has ever seen. So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, on behalf of all the Western K-pop fans on the call, thanks for saying that.
Absolutely.
Okay, great. Brittany, are you there? Yeah, okay, great.
Hi, it's nice to meet you. I'm Brittany. I'm Professor Kim's student that's working on my thesis for NCT.
Oh, nice. Yeah. NCT to the world. Come on.
Of course. Arguably more so than other K-pop companies, SM Entertainment has placed a profound focus on the acquisition of foreign talent. Most notably, its formation of groups such as Super Junior M, EXO M, and most recently, the creation of Wavy. As seen in how the pursuits of K-pop are often aligned with the goals of the Hallyu movement, what can be seen about this integration of foreign K-pop idols in the Korean entertainment industry? Could foreign K-pop idols attract global fans in a different, more influential way than Korean idols do? Thank you for answering my question.
Yeah. Well, I'll try to take that in chunks, if you will. So first, I think it's important to note, and people may or may not be aware of this, but as a part of our casting process at SM, you know, we've always looked for talent everywhere, right? And so that's why, you know, you're doing your paper on NCT. Johnny's from Chicago. Mark's from Toronto, right? Then you have members that are from Korea. You have members that are, you know, of various backgrounds of Asian descent, but maybe studied in the UK. And, you know, so you have kind of a mix of when we're out looking for talent, it's always been a focus on finding incredible gems that existed anywhere in the world. And so a part of that casting process has always been of that. To the next part of your question in terms of, you know, people that are of other ethnicities, meaning they're not Korean, it's always really been kind of a place of trailblazing yet again, to find other artists of different backgrounds that had that same level of talent and were willing to put that hard work in, right? Because everybody knows it takes hard work to reach that level of skill. And so it's always been important to go out and look for that talent. And to your point of, you know, and I spoke about it earlier, like K-pop is everywhere. It's broken barriers and boundaries beyond anybody's, what they thought would be possible. And so I think the evolution of K-pop, you know, in bringing others in is really just a continued diversification of what K-pop is, right? I always look at it and I go like, well, what is it that makes K-pop? And, you know, the embodiment of what it is that makes somebody that, you know, there's a lot of pieces to it, but it's really, to me, it's somebody who has passion, drive, willing to put in the work to become the best possible that they can be in a craft that they care about. And for me, I think that's what really truly makes, you know, the artist, the person who's willing to put that work in. And that's why at SM, sometimes people are casted as young as 12 years old. And they'll work for 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 years to reach that level. And when they reach that level, that's when they come out to the world and show, you know, what they're made of after they've really built to that level. So I know that's a little bit all over the place, but I hope that covered the various parts of your question.
Okay, great. Thank you for your question, Brittany, and also for Sam asking those questions. We do have Q&A open. I don't know if we're going to be able to cover all the questions that you guys post, but we'll try to get to some of them, okay? So if you do have questions or comments, you know, you want to use that forum in order to pose your questions. I'm going to go to, because this seems to be a related question, Natalie.
Hello. Hello, Mr. Rodriguez. My question for you is, how do you think the training system evolved throughout the different generations of K-pop? Like such an example as allowing training and debuts of younger kids, as like you mentioned, and as well as young kids coming from across the world to become trainees.
Yeah, so, you know, as you know, as a part of that casting process, it's kind of a, you know, it focuses on all the various pieces of the arts, right? So whether that be vocal, dance, instrumentation, the ability to speak publicly, right? There's all kinds of different pieces and parts that go into the training. I guess what I would say is, from the point that Mr. Lee created culture technology, which is the, you know, the process of casting all the way to bringing an artist to the public. That process, I think, you know, in my humble opinion, has really just been fine-tuned over time, right? There's been more people invited in, various choreographers, different vocalists, you know, the way that we train, the way that technology has advanced has really just allowed for it to be fine-tuned year after year. I like to think of it almost like a professional athlete, if you will, you know, how they used to train back in the early 90s to how they train today. It's a very different landscape. And so I think with every passing year, it just became more and more fine-tuned. As it relates to your question in terms of when somebody's ready, that's really part of what the casting team does and the development team, right? They're really sitting there and watching to see, you know, who has reached that level where they're now ready to, you know, to debut. And so, as I said, some people could be 2 years, some could be 8 years. It just varies. Everybody has their own pace. So yeah, hopefully that covers your question. And thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
I'm gonna go to a question that is actually a bit of a softball. What is your favorite song? Is the question Ruth Gillar asked. So
my favorite song, just
I don't
period.
think she's asking me. I don't think she's asking me. So I think it's you.
Well, I'll give you kind of I'll throw a couple curveballs at you. One, which is a song that for me, and I'll give you two. I'll give you my US and my K-pop. You know, the US side, you know, the very first concert I ever went to was an artist named Santana.
Oh yeah.
And he's an amazing guitar player. And he has a song which is called Samba Pati. It's a ballad kind of guitar solo where he just plays incredibly. I would say, if you were to say, Dom, what's your favorite song? I have so many, but that's one that's dear to my heart because I experienced it at a young age and I still listen to it today. On the K-pop side, there's so many that I love, but because I worked on it, I really, really enjoyed the song called Call Me Baby, which is by EXO. And it's a song that I was a producer on, and I just really, really love the energy of that record. There's something special about the R&B mixed with the New Jack Swing beat, mixed with the incredible vocal and the build of that record. There's just something incredibly special. So I worked on it, but you know, even if I didn't, I'd choose that one as well. That one really sticks out.
Mm-hmm. A lot of people actually are agreeing with Dome that is one of the favorite songs of all time. So
amazing,
you did a good job.
amazing.
So, yeah, and I mean, judging from your background and your name and your affinity to Santana, I figured that you are Hispanic descent.
I am, yeah. So my family, you know, the roots of my family, although from Santa Fe, New Mexico, you know, the roots of my family hail from Madrid, Spain.
Oh, I see.
And so, yeah, that's, you know, I'm a Spaniard, you know, by descent of my, you know, my family before me. But yeah.
And so, I mean, one of the concerns, I think, you know, Adam Jung asked this question, and I've shortened it, is that maybe that there is some kind of prejudices that Koreans may still hold, you know, when it comes to non-Korean members. What do you think, in your opinion? Obviously, you have an experience working in Korea, and this continues, I think, to obviously, you know, to trend, you know,
yeah,
quite a bit,
you know.
And so just wanted to hear what you have to say, because it's some of the obviously questions that we had received.
Yeah, no, you know, that I guess I'll first say, yeah, that's a very difficult question to answer, right? You know, I'm not so engulfed in that piece that I think I can speak to it with complete intellect, but I guess I would say, as I said earlier, music is universal. You know, idols or members of these groups that may not be Korean, they're putting their heart, their soul, and their passion into being the best that they can be. And hopefully, you know, people who, you know, who aren't willing to accept them can appreciate that they're giving all they can to be the best artist they can be.
Right.
And hopefully they will win the hearts of those people who, you know, who are having a challenge to grapple with that particular piece. And I guess that's really all I could say on the subject. But it's, you know, it's important to note that, you know, these people that are out there and really, you know, putting all they have into becoming the best artists they can be, it's for the community of music lovers and lovers of artists everywhere.
Right, right. Thank you. And let me invite, because I feel as if we're talking about your background a little bit, I think Myron Rose had a question about how how does one become a vice president of SM? And so
Sure.
Myron, wait, you want to ask? Yeah.
Professor, you know my name is Mylin.
Mylan, yeah. It's been a while. It's been a while. There's been pandemic. The last time I saw you, it was 2018.
That's true.
You know, it's been there. We had a lot going on. All right. So.
Well, hello. My name is Mylin Ra. Yeah, it's nice.
Hey, nice to meet you.
So yeah, that was my question. What was your journey like to get into the vice president position that you're currently in right now? And also because I'm studying abroad in Korea starting this fall, and I'm hoping to potentially get an internship at a music company while I'm in Korea.
Great.
Someone who wants to enter the music industry, which steps should I take to receive a job or an internship opportunity at SM or any other music industry?
Sure, and I think she broke up a little bit, but I got the gist of the question. So I'll quickly give you my path, right? I started very young as a composer, and I shared this with Kyung. Simultaneously, I made sure that I was very focused on understanding the music business, because there is a business element to it, of course. And so I've always kind of toted the line between creative and business, and so I guess I would say the first step is for you to identify kind of the area that you think would be most interesting to you. So if you have a passion for marketing, if you have a passion for corporate partnerships, if you have a passion for, diving into the digital and social media parts of the world, if you have a passion for the creative side, I think that, honing in on what those areas is probably step one. Step two is to get onto the SM side and submit your resume and so on and so forth. And I told Kyung earlier that I'm very happy for students who speak with him and are really passionate. I'm more than willing to have chats with you and speak a bit more about what are the programs of internship and what are the ways that you can, you can become a part of the SM family, if you will. So, that's really the path, but I think it's really, diving into what it is you really want to focus on. And once you've identified that, that allows you to really look at the, the slate of opportunities that would be available within SM as a whole, because there's a lot of different areas of exploration that you could dive into. And once you figure that piece out, for those of you who are extremely passionate, I'm more than willing to put some time aside to learn a little bit more about that. Because of course, I know some won't necessarily speak Korean, so it won't be so easy to navigate, let's say, trying to submit your resumes or get an internship, in South Korea. So know that we truly have a diverse SM USA that is made up of people that are Black Americans, white Americans, Hispanic Americans, Salvadorians, Korean Americans. Truly, SM USA is a diverse team. And so, know that it is very possible for everybody. And hopefully that leans in. And again, if you're truly passionate, I'd be more than willing to take some of those conversations on.
Yeah, good. Thank you so much, Miss Rose. I'm gonna fail second time. Just do your last name. I don't want to be smacked down again. All right. This comes from Clara. She's been posing questions on the chat box or the Q&A. And this seems to be interesting. Can you talk a little bit more about the influence of New Jack Swing and how SM particularly tries to incorporate other genres of sound? And then she had how do you characterize or how would you define the SM sound? Is there such a term that, you can say definitely this is, with authority, this is SM sound?
Sure. So the SM sound, the answer to that is the sound is limitless. The sound is it's truly limitless. As you guys know, we do so many different styles, so many different directions.
Mm-hmm.
What I would say in terms of whatever that sound is, or whatever that feel is, you guys that listen to the music know that K-pop, a lot of people define it as, oh, it's dance music. That couldn't be further from the truth. Well, a lot of the title songs are focused on performance. As you guys know, there's ballads, there's mid-tempo songs, there's, you know, there's stuff that's R&B, there's stuff that is EDM leaning, there's stuff that's acoustic, there's stuff that's really deeply rooted in kind of the trot, you know, sound of, you know, of where the original Korean pop came from. There's so many different influences from everywhere that I think, you know, the sound is truly limitless when it comes to SM. In terms of the first part of your question, New Jack Swing, like New Jack Swing was an era in the 90s that was created by Teddy Riley. And for some of you who know the history, Teddy Riley actually worked with SM. In fact, he was my production partner for many years. So he was the creator of the genre New Jack Swing, which was very much about that swing that you hear in his rhythm of beats mixed with incredible complex R&B chord progressions. And so, you know, I just think that that particular sound is something that people around the world really gravitated towards. And you hear it in some songs that come from K-pop. You hear it from Bruno Mars on his last records, like a song called Finesse, that was completely New Jack Swing, right? Mm-hmm. So I think that sound as a whole is really just something that, you know, that brings back that 90s feel. Okay. And so a lot of people grab onto it and bring it in. And I think
Motown R&B kind of 90s rendition, right? That
yeah, sure. Yeah.
Yeah. K-pop is.
Yeah, it was really like a lot of deep gospel R&B chords mixed with, you know, some up-tempo dance beats and with a swing to it though, you know, a little something different. So, so yeah, that's my answer for that particular question.
Yeah, no, it's amazing how the minor pentatonic scale, you know, has so much weight, you know, I mean, and, you know, trot has it, and then you have blues that actually uses the same, you know, the 5 notes, right?
Yeah, and one thing you can say certainly about us, and not with all music, but certainly the title songs, is we like to keep you on your feet. You know, we like to keep you wondering what's going to happen next. Mm-hmm. You know, with a lot of Western music, it's very, what I like to call loop based. You know, it's like the same repeatable piece kind of for 3.5 minutes with some slight changes.
Okay.
For us, it's like you're here and suddenly you're over there. And then you're over here and you're over there. We like to keep it interesting. And that's what really allows for the visual elements and the performance elements to come to life.
Oh, right.
So yeah, it's just.
So that's what you just said was really interesting though, because I thought it was the music that drove that kind of, you know, you have to have 2 bridges, right? You have to have different kind of choruses, you know, those kind of breaks in a song that obviously K-pop is doing so, you know, a lot more.
Right.
Because in some way, you know, I mean, hip hop has become more simplified, right? You got Travis Scott doing a lot, you know, I mean, in some ways.
Oh, it's completely simplified. It's
it's like, it's really, really simple. They've toned it completely to this, you know, just one chord progression or something. It's not even a chord progression, you know? So, but K-pop is obviously very dynamic in the ways in which it breaks and, you know, does this little, you know, 2 bridges and so on, and 2 codas. And what you're telling me is interesting, because what you're saying is it was actually the looks that drove those change, you know, that kind of structures, and not necessarily the music. Interesting.
You know, when you think about performance, when you think about going to a concert or watching a music video, there's something to be said about what's going to happen. Is it truly going to be entertaining? Is it going to grab you and pull you in? Because as we all know, we have many choices to choose what kind of content we want to consume. And, you know, I think when it comes to K-pop, and certainly at SM, the detail and attention that's put into the music and the visual pieces and making sure that that's a perfect making sure that that's a perfect marriage and the choreography that plays into that.
Yeah, no, I get it. No, I get it.
Incredible.
Yeah, all right.
Incredible.
Joe, you wanted to ask a question. You want to come in?
Yeah. First of all, it's a something of an offer and then a question, but so I'm having so much fun listening to this, and I know it's hard to get feedback from the audience when there's just a bunch of squares on the screen. But this is really riveting. Yeah, this is really amazing, and I'm really enjoying this. And you have such a good energy, and you speak so clearly and with such deep knowledge. So the first part is, I just, if you ever want to teach a class at UCI or come give a series of lectures, doors are open. Doors are open. So that's the
listen. You guys call me out, and I'll come with you. As I said, I truly enjoy this. This isn't my first go round. We
got some pull in the music department, and so we can try to team up over there.
Listen, I'll just say this. I think the students that are here today, and if there's some faculty as well, amazing. They're the future of everything that's going to happen forward. And to know that they're engaged in Korean studies, to know that they're interested in learning this space, to know that there's a passion for it, I think is just incredible. And to know that K-pop could be a piece of why people are gravitating towards that is even more incredible, because I stand on that side of people who, I'm not Korean, but yet I'm deeply entrenched in it. And it's become my passion, right? And so, the idea of being able to do that with students is I think an incredible opportunity. So Joe, you call me up.
Okay. I will hold you that. I will hold you that. The question.
Yeah, let's get off the squares. Let's get off these squares and get back to real life.
Absolutely. You actually anticipated my question, which is about the future, actually. And I know that you are, you work on the artistic side, but you're also a VP. So I assume that you're privy to the business side as well. You mentioned that earlier, the importance of knowing the business. So I guess I'm curious about, I feel like in some ways the K-pop is huge, it's becoming so global so what does the horizon look like? What's the future, both artistically, but also in terms of there's a question in the chat, for example, about Latin America, what's the business horizon as well? So I'm just kind of curious. You're a young guy and you have lots of energy.
Yeah, so sure.
Your future too.
Yeah. So I guess, I've talked a lot about my creative side, which by the way, is rare that I'm always talking about the creative side. So thank you guys for exploring that with me. I'm always talking about the business side because my role at SM is I oversee everything in the US market, right? I oversee LATAM. I really look at these things from an operational standpoint across all departments, A&R, business development, legal, and the business affairs that come along with that, the marketing, I'm kind of entrenched in all of it. So, the horizon for K-pop, I think, and it's a bold thing to say, is we've really just scratched the surface of where we're heading. There's been this underlying fever of growth for many years, as I said, in these markets dating back to 2007, specifically the EU, US, and LATAM. And then in the past few years, you have this mainstream spotlight that just catapulted, right? Now, we're at a place where mainstream media is chasing to be a part of what's happening in this field, because they know how impactful it has become to our culture. And I'm talking about just popular culture. And so I think what you'll see, certainly from many of the groups and the companies, is a lot of focus and emphasis on making sure that you can reach those audiences everywhere. And so I think you're going to see a continued expansion and a continued focus. You've certainly seen a lot of people starting to make English records, right? And so that's a continued expansion on audience. The tours have always kind of traveled everywhere, but they haven't been as frequent in other territories. So I think you're going to start to see a more expanded tour run for people. And I think you're going to see more companies setting up offices in different areas. And so, you know, I know that we certainly have plans to do many of those things. And the SM USA team was, although it's been here for 10 years, we now have kind of a full-fledged team. So yeah, I think that's really what the future holds, is a lot more expansion, a lot more growth, a lot more building on, you know, I always kind of go the core audience and then the non-core. The non-core is the people who haven't really, you know, either haven't been exposed to it or haven't decided whether they like it or not, or haven't come all the way into this world. So it's how are you going to make sure that the core stays fully engaged and at the same time expand the audience without losing, you know, what has really built the foundations. And so I think that's where we're heading. And you see it year on year. You see more people coming in year on year. You see the growth in numbers. You see the growth in size of venues. You see the growth in, you know, physical sales and merchandise and digital consumption. And you see the user bases on social media platforms are just, you know, it's truly incredible. So yeah, again, scratching the surface here, and it's going to get much bigger.
Thank you. And I'm going to start calling you Professor Dome. So, you know, we'll follow up on this.
Thanks, Joe.
Thank you, Joe. I appreciate it.
Q&A is lighting up. So we better get to some of the comments or questions the best we can. I think Lionel Alejandro just agreed that two songs, Next Level and, you know, I Got a Boy by Sunishida is the best examples of dynamic sound, was a feedback that Lionel had. Tamar Herman, I think she's an author of a book that came out on BTS, an important book. She had a couple of comments. She said, since you mentioned the sound is limitless, can SM please re-promote NCT's Limitless? Can you reissue Limitless?
Listen, I promise you, NCT, the collective groups that have come from NCT, there's incredible music to come. And most recently, we celebrated an incredible feat with NCT Dream and a song they had called Hot Sauce. And that broke a lot of records for that particular group. So yeah, please look forward to a lot of NCT music.
And tomorrow,
yeah, Limitless was a great record.
Yeah.
Actually, you want to know something about Limitless that I think is really important to note? Limitless was produced by Harvey Mason Jr., whom is actually the CEO of the Recording Academy in the US.
Oh.
So the company behind Music Cares and the Grammy Museum and the Grammy Awards, that was produced by Harvey Mason and his team. And again, he is the CEO today, the acting CEO of what is probably the most influential, one of the most influential music, nonprofit music companies that recognizes artists every year on the biggest stage in the world, the Grammys. If you ask somebody what they wanted to accomplish in the US, they'd probably say, I hope to someday win a Grammy. So to know that connection is there and was made many years before is just, I think, an incredible thing for people to explore.
Great. And Tamar also had another question. Can you give any insight? She said the talk is wonderful and says SM Entertainment's new common venture and the SMCU and how it relates to SM's plan for growth in the North American market is the question. She has more insights than I would because I don't know what he's actually.
Yeah, no worries. So I'd love to give you more insight. What I would say is, please go watch Espa's first episode, which is a 10-minute video. And that is the jump off point for many things to come. So please stay tuned. But if you haven't watched that, make sure to go watch aespa, you know, of course, Next Level, which is their newest single, but also, you know, the video that's come out on them, which is kind of an episode 1 to the story that you'll continue to experience.
Some people have already watched it, and it's feeding is great, awesome, you know. So
yeah, and if you want to kind of there's somebody who wrote an incredible article on the SMCU from Teen Vogue. If you go and kind of check that out, it's they explain it very well, maybe better than I could. So please go search that when you get a chance.
Okay. I am gonna invite Anna Marina to ask your question. Okay, in person, great.
Hello.
And myself a break.
Hey.
Thank
Nice
you
to
so
meet
much
you.
for being here and for your time. So you already touched on like global popularity and like what's in store for K-pop, but I wanted to ask more specifically, what's in store for the future of SM? I really love aespa's concept. So I was wondering if like, is there gonna be more of that kind of like digital culture kind of concepts in SM?
Well, look, we're, as you'll read in some of these articles and certain pieces out there, the SMCU is coming to life. And you're going to see many different pieces tied together, and you're going to see a world come together from the past, the present, and the future like you've never seen before. So I would say pay particular attention to all of these things that are going to happen as we start to move from release to release. And the dots will be connecting. Okay.
Okay.
I wish I could say more, but in time.
I understand.
Thank you for your question. Yep.
Okay. Question from Brian Wu. What was the thought process behind forming a group like Super M? Can you talk a little bit about that? Why do you think other companies have not done anything that is similar to the concept behind the Super M?
Yeah, I think the concept of Super M, and I think many have dubbed it this, and I've said it myself many times before. It was really the concept of creating the Avengers of K-pop, right? Bringing together various pieces of incredible talent from different groups within SM to create, kind of a super group, if you will. And that was the thought process behind it, right? It was kind of to me, it was like 2.0. It was like, here you have these artists who are incredibly successful in their own respective groups coming together to form something where you could enjoy all of those people coming together in a way that you frankly would never get to enjoy in any other forum that way. And so the concept around Super M, was really about bringing that mentality of the Avengers, right? Your Iron Man, your Hulk, your Captain America, and really bringing those super forces together to create something that was incredible. And the outcome, thanks to the community of fans, is they debuted with a #1 record in the US, which was, the first time that ever happened that a group, from the world of K-pop debuted as a new group, if you will, and had a #1 record on the most prominent chart in the US, which is the Billboard 200 chart. So I think a lot of people loved it and enjoyed it, and there's more to come there.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people are also asking a similar question, because obviously we're obviously entering an age of AI and artificial intelligence, and can they be the next obviously idols or musicians or super groups, or I mean, there's a lot of question there. Where is the integration possible? What do you have an opinion on this? Do you have a way in which SM is going forward? What can work and what can work?
I guess the only thing that I would just say, look, we've always been known to trailblaze and innovate. we are particularly engaged in, how can we enrich the experience for people? And, as technology evolves, we certainly want to be on the cutting edge of how can we incorporate that into the way that we create our content to make sure that we are on the front lines of really setting and leading that path to create new trends of the way that people will experience their favorite artists.
Mm-hmm. And at that point, I mean, is it really K-pop, right? What does K stand for? I mean, is there, I mean, a lot of, I mean, because obviously until now, K stood for, everybody understood, to be the Korean pop. I mean, if it goes to the post-human experience or the post-human idol, right? Is it? Yeah. Is it even, relevant?
Listen, I don't know if that's where we're heading or not, right? I think there's more years to travel. But as you guys know, with aespa, aespa is, they are physical for artists, that are there present, but their backstory is that they're connected to their AI, right? So it's not what people are saying, is that going to be the future now? It's no, there's a deeper backstory that allows you to experience aespa through different lenses.
Right.
And so I think that's the exciting part, right? Is really trying to speak to people in the modern world of today. But yeah, in terms of your question and what is it, the future, is it going to make it K-pop? Is it no longer going to be K-pop? I think that similar to, I like to sometimes reference Latin music, right? Because Latin music has really impacted culture as well. And I think it will always be that, right? K-pop will always be K-pop, but it will become and has become a significant part of our popular culture, generally speaking, right? So, the K will always be there, but it's going to be embedded much deeper and not so much seen as let's call it a niche market.
Wow, that's profound and deep, man. The way like blues, right, was, at a certain point was no longer African-American music. The way in which hip hop is no longer married to, Bronx or Compton, that experience. You're thinking, oh, K-pop will someday in 50 years, right? Like,
well, look,
no longer just be Boa and, Mr. Lee Suman and so on that came from that region and that particular kind of ethnic group. And you think,
yeah, I mean, look, who knows? What I would say is look around today at just the squares that I can see. I know there's many other squares that are existing within Zoom in the backgrounds here, but look at how diversified we are today, just in the community. So what that evolution looks like is to anybody's guess, right? But what I would say to you is we're at a place where it's reaching everyone. And so it's only natural that there will be some type of evolution that will come from that.
Right.
I think that there's probably tons of people that are part of the community that have their own ambitions to maybe pursue a career as an artist. And so if this is the space they love, this is what they're going to gravitate towards.
Right.
So again, to anybody's guess, but exciting times ahead.
Yeah. No, it opens up a lot of questions, because in some way it gets obviously more cosmopolitan and more broader. I mean, rock and roll started from a very specific place, the African American and marrying of that with Elvis, in Memphis, that stuff. Beatles came later. I mean, hip hop came from a very, very specific experience, community, very small, and then it's obviously global and broader and cosmopolitan, all of that stuff. And you cannot say, well, only certain people can play it or, deserve to play it, to deserve to be part of that experience. So
Yeah.
If K-pop, again, at some point could also reach that height, I think in some ways I feel like where is this Korean thing that I used to love? One part of me, but another part of me would say, wow, look at this thing. It's no longer just about being Korean,
Right. Yeah, I mean, look, we'll see if that day comes. But again, it's just amazing to see the diversity that exists within the community today.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so a lot of people actually asked about ESPA, and you covered, I think, some portions of it. People
please go watch that video. Please go read. There's a lot of US press on them right now. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of articles, but the one that I, again, would really encourage people to go read is written by Teen Vogue. And if I would be so bold here, I'm going to try to find a link and drop it in the chat for people to go look at. But it's a pretty incredible piece, and I think I actually found it. And it is ESPA's Concept Explained. So for those who can see this chat room, and maybe you guys have a different
you got to put it
drop it in Q&A.
Yeah, Julian, can you get that and drop it on the Q&A? Thank you.
Let me see. Yep. And there's a pretty incredible write-up there that I just think really gives a pretty deep look into the concept.
Mm-hmm. All right, so I'm gonna ask. We're trying to race toward the finish line here. I thank you again for being so generous and covering all kinds of grounds today. I think it's been really productive.
Sure.
And before I forget, for those of you who are participating, we'll be sending a link to the questionnaire that will ask you important questions about, what your experience of the webinar have been like. Please fill out the questionnaire. I think it only takes about 5 minutes, and it can help us grow, and to look at the survey result and see what we did right and what we didn't do so right. Okay, thank you. And Frida, if you want to come on camera and ask your question.
Frida? Oh, hello.
Hi.
I think you're on mute.
Yeah, do you want to turn on your audio?
Oh yeah, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Hello.
There you go.
Nice to meet you.
Hello. Nice to meet you as well.
Yeah, I just want to ask about what are the challenges faced when bringing a new culture to a country other than Korea? Because maybe at first it was a little difficult to be accepted in a country other than Korea. Like I know from SM song like FX, I don't know the language, but I like the rhythm and all about the song and concepts.
Frida, can you tell us where you are, where you're at? Are you in the US or are you somewhere else?
I'm from Indonesia.
Okay, Indonesia. Well, welcome.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for coming and asking the question, Frida.
Yeah, I guess I don't know that I can answer your question in terms of bringing another culture to another country specifically, but I can answer it in the context of bringing music from one country to another. And I've said it, I think, a few times throughout the conversation, but I am a true believer that music is truly a universal language and it can be experienced by all, regardless of what that language is that's sitting atop of whatever that musical bed is below it, the instrumental piece. And so I think that if you're making incredible, art in today's world, it's much smaller than it used to be, right? We're all really connected right here, right?
Yeah.
There's nothing that holds back. There's no barriers. When you look at platforms like Apple Music and Spotify and Amazon and You know, you look at, you know, the content providers like your Netflixes and your, you know, your Disney Pluses now, your HBO Max and so on and so forth, right? They're all setting up operations everywhere because they know that people are in a world today where they can enjoy all types of different cultures right through their screens, wherever they may be, as long as they have some bandwidth and a Wi-Fi connection, right? So I think that from that context, what we've seen, especially in this last year, while we've been in this pandemic, is people really gravitating towards trying to experience other parts of the world because they could not go there anymore. So suddenly they're pulling content from who knows where. And so, you know, in that context, I think that, again, if you're making incredible art and it's something that represents your culture and you're sending it out into the world, if it is truly great, people are going to appreciate it and they are going to consume it and come to enjoy it and love it. And K-pop is really a pure example of what happens when you do that.
Thank you.
Hopefully that helps.
Thank
you for your question as well.
For your question. Stacy, do you want to come on and ask your question? I think.
Yes. Hello.
Hi, Stacy.
Hi. All right. So thank you again for coming
nice
on.
Background.
Thank you.
Yeah, awesome. Awesome.
Well, maybe you can tell by my background, but I'm an EAC major, so an East Asian Cultures major with an emphasis in Korean culture. I aspire to work in live entertainment under Live Nation and like do tours and stuff. Specifically for the K-pop industry, like bringing more shows, K-pop shows to the US and Hispanic speaking countries. This is a goal that I share with others and who also have a love for Korean culture and want to bring it to other cultures using entertainment. So then how can we as foreigners present ourselves in the Korean entertainment space by letting them know that we don't seek to Westernize K-pop, but to present it as it is? And how can I make that known and present it with that opportunity?
Yeah, I think, so it's really good. I think this piggybacks on an earlier question around kind of just how do I get involved in this marketplace professionally and how I get involved in this field. I guess for you, you've taken that step of going, hey, I really love live entertainment and I really want to dive into the live entertainment business, specifically with K-pop. As you probably know, Live Nation and AEG and other independent companies are working together with K-pop companies all the time. And they're bringing tours across all parts of the world, right? Not with the frequency that I think people would want, but I think it's getting a bit more saturated, if you will. You know, like there is a lot more happening now where it's like, hey, as a K-pop fan, I actually get to have a choice of what groups I want to go see now. Because there's a bit more happening as more companies turn their eyes and focus on this marketplace. So in terms of getting engaged in this space, as I said earlier, if it's something you're passionate about and you want to touch base, would love to. We certainly have an amazing live division. You may or may not be aware, but as a part of SM Group, we have a company called Dreammaker, which is by far one of the largest production and promotion companies, you know, in Korea for sure, and in other parts of Asia as well. And we work hand in hand with them and are constantly bringing those tours to the US marketplace. My team specifically is very engaged in really helping to carry those tours and set them up in these markets. So it's something that we do day in and day out. So yeah, if it's a serious passion for yours, I would invite a separate conversation to hear more about it. And yeah, I think that's what I can offer, at least from where I stand. In terms of those other companies you mentioned, like a Live Nation or an AEG, et cetera, they certainly have a group of people that are focused now on bringing K-pop concerts or already engaged. So there's opportunities there as well.
Okay. Thank you, Stacy, for asking the question. And I think, you know, a lot of the students asked that, you know, Stacy's question is one of the many questions that, you know, basically asked, had this interest, you know, in working in the Korean music industry, because I think, as Tanya Stern here points out, K-pop labels market new music you know, differently than the American music industry. Comeback schedule, photo concept, music teasers, MV, album, all of those stuff seems
Sure.
really, and the live, you know, concerts, even in the concepts, you know, in the live concert seems really to be a lot more illustrious and, you know, it's dense. And that's the draw I think a lot of the students have. And, you know, what is this? You know, even the students who had, you know, very little interest, it draws you in. And so the question is, as Tanya here points out, what can the K-pop industry teach the American music industry in terms of promoting artists and their music?
Well, listen, I'll tell you what, they're learning a lot because
are they really American?
They have partners. You know, I love to you know, first point out and recognize one of our partners here in the U.S. marketplace is Capitol Music Group, which is a part of Universal Music Group. And we've worked very closely with them on NCT and very closely on Super M. And it's been very amazing to see kind of the two cultures come together from a marketing standpoint, because you have all of those things that, yes, we do at SM, which are, you know, the attention to detail and the rollout of a project is unlike anything you see anywhere else in the world. And so, you know, they're picking some of it up. They're picking some of it up. And life,
kids,
you know,
and new kids on the block teaching the old school.
And listen, likewise, and listen, it goes both ways, right? It's not a one-way street. Well, they're learning things about how it's done in our world.
Yeah.
We're also learning things about how they do it in their world and trying to find a way to, you know, to marry that culture of marketing to find that sweet spot. And, you know, every project is unique in its own way. So there's a lot of learnings that happen, you know, when that collaboration takes place.
I see. What can you give me an example of what American companies, labels do well that Koreans should be, in your mind, do more of?
I think people would agree with me here that just the level of investment in time into the actual product itself is something that I think is something we still do. You know, the development of talent in the US has kind of gone away. You know, there's no longer the Motowns of the world. You know, it's kind of like, to some extent, you're brought into a company if you've already had some level of success.
I see.
Where with SM, we're really looking at raw talent and developing it. And then on the marketing side, yeah, that detail again of what goes into the actual experience that you will have through the music and through the visual content is something that I think is not really done as much here in the US marketplace. You know, so I think, you know, when you start with that and then you start to break those pieces out, it's just really hard to compete unless you're operating with that mentality from the beginning of your project.
No, all good.
And some do, but not as frequent.
Yeah, no, I mean, yeah, no, I can definitely put it into those perspectives now, you know, and because in some ways, I mean, there's a reason why, you know, I mean, Queen and Led Zeppelin's, you know, of the day, I mean, and Santana, as you point out, that, and still in some ways they do work, right? You know, in the American context, that long hours of professional, again, finishing the album concept, you know, still drives, I think, you know, a lot of the engines, you know, so you got Billie Eilish, you know, kind of working toward that angle.
Sure.
You know, you see that.
Yeah, you have people that artistic value is something that I think everybody should appreciate it, you know, because it takes a lot to create a record. It takes a lot to create a marketing plan at that level. And believe me, for those who are interested in this space, it is not for the faint of heart. It takes a lot of hard work. Although I may be an executive, believe me, I work in, you know, I work pretty incredible hours and I'm happy to because it's my passion. But it really requires a lot to reach that level.
Right. I mean, there's something over there that Koreans also can learn from,
Sure, sure. It goes both ways. For
Right.
me, I fortunately have been able to sit right in the crosshairs of East and West, having spent 10 years there, 6 years there.
Mm-hmm.
Fortunately, my wife is Korean American, but she's also, very Korean as well. So she keeps me in check on culture as well, for things that I haven't quite experienced, but I did experience a lot in 6 years.
Right.
And so a lot of what I do is trying to be, the center of those balance beams, and working together with partners on both sides to make sure that we find that right place where cultures can meet and work together.
Yeah. On that note, I think we've hit the 90-minute mark, and that's all the time I think we have for today. I feel as if I want to continue. Are you frozen? No, you're okay. All right. I feel as if
I think I'm okay.
Conversation and entertain all these other great questions that keeps popping up. And I'm so sorry for those of you who actually posted we did not get to, but it would just we can go all night, till midnight if we
we could keep rolling.
We could
for a while.
But yeah. I wish we could have done this in person, so you could actually sit in that great piano of yours and then demonstrate, the transition one can take from a piano piece to a K-pop song.
Oh yeah, it definitely requires a lot more than that thing behind me, but that's
you could have demonstrated, how growl the notes of the growl.
Sure. And there's Kyung, before we close out, somebody had said in the chat here, that I had said, hey, for those who want to reach out, if you guys could just connect with Kyung or Joe, if you would be so kind, or whoever you guys designate, feel free to connect those people to me.
Oh, thank you, Joe.
And then I can get into those conversations.
Available.
So,
and
Sam, I know you asked the question, but Sam, yes, please, let's connect.
Yeah, sorry, I don't couldn't keep up with all the different moving pieces.
It's flying.
Yeah. All right. Again, last words before we depart, Dome.
I guess I'd like to just close by saying thank you so much for having me. It's been an incredible experience. Joe, I'll hold you to that offer. You let me know when I get to come by and do more of this.
Absolutely.
And I absolutely enjoyed the questions. Kyung, thank you for having me, and thank you for moderating and leading today. It's been great, and thank you to everybody who's attended. Greatly appreciate your time. You have many choices of where to spend your time, so thank you for coming to listen to me for just a bit today. And I look forward to more conversations.
Thank you so much. And this wraps up the three exciting, again, webinar series that we had. Rise of K-Culture. It's been great. It speaks volumes about, where we, it's not just about obviously music, it's about films, entertainment, to television, big screen, small screen. You name it. It's Korean contents are delivering the goods to the world these days. So
absolutely,
we've been able to sample small pieces here and there. And I thank again Dome being part of the conversation today to make that possible, sampling possible. I want to again thank Consul Yu of the Consulate General's office in Los Angeles, as well as CEO Lee Jin-gyu, whose American name is Ginny Lee of SM Entertainment America, which has been instrumental in bringing these talks together. Thank you, everyone. Have a good night.
Amazing. Thank you, everybody.